All right. Today in the Seers series, we're going to talk about correspondences, the law of correspondences, and the law of correspondences as it pertains to creating alchemy for clarity. And what I mean by that, it's a lot. In many circles, we notice, or many spiritual paths, we can notice that there seems to be correspondences in a room that is dedicated to one particular thing. I will go ahead and use the example of in a Catholic church in the Lady Chapel. In the Lady Chapel, typically you will find a statue of the Madonna. And here is my statue of the Black Madonna that I picked up in France. So we will see that in that particular cathedral, in the Lady Chapel, here is the statue of the Black Madonna, and everything that decorates that room corresponds to the teachings of the Black Madonna and the messages of the Black Madonna, who she was, who she is, etc. And it's up to us to discern, typically when we're in one of those places, what all of the symbolism means. And we've gone over that in previous classes here on the Seers series with regard to the Black Madonna. But this particular series is dedicated to honing in. It really is about drilling down and getting more clarity in our daily practice of being with spirit. And oftentimes, well, I was having a conversation earlier today with a longtime friend of mine who's an author and currently really quite a dynamic public speaker. And he is getting ready to publish a novel that he's written in tandem with a biblical scholar. And the novel is about Mary Magdalene, Yeshua ben Joseph, Thomas, and Judas Iscariot. And so working with this scholar in biblical studies, they're creating the story of and how they were related to one another. And of course, using symbolism and bringing together the bits and the pieces to focus that novel on that particular grouping of disciples. And of course, Yeshua. When we are bringing together a group energy, or we really want to get in and discern something, oftentimes we feel as though we have to go into meditation. And a lot of people feel that meditation is the emptying of the mind. It's the emptying of everything other than paying attention to the fact that you are empty, right? The beingness of being unattached. Unattachment. In this particular case, I said to him, well, why don't you, if you want to get further information, you really want to drill down into the life of the Magdalene, Yeshua ben Joseph, aside from all the scholarly work, but on a personal basis, why don't you meditate? And he said, I don't do well meditating. My mind takes me here, my mind takes me there, and it takes me everywhere but where I feel I need to go in meditation. And I said, but what about meditating in partnership with? What about if you invite the presence of Mary Magdalene to be with you, and rather than judge where your mind is going as you're trying to continue to empty it, what if you allow her to take your mind and your heart to those places that are needed in this moment for the purpose that you are looking to fulfill? And he said, well, I never thought about it that way. How would I do that? Well, the law of correspondences say, of course, likes attract. As above, so below, all of that basic, simple, hermetic wisdom. When we are drilling down to gain information from spirit, to see more clearly into a situation, or in this case, to maybe do a little stroll or walking about with Mary the Magdalene, I suggested setting a quiet space, of course, perhaps having a few images around you of St. Baume, of the Cathar stronghold, places in the south of France that pertain to Mary Magdalene. And he said, well, I happen to believe, and in my research anyway, that perhaps she came from Ethiopia. And I said, well, then maybe in that space, you might have some photos or objects from Ethiopia. Well, he said, well, why? If we wish to discern, we wish to go in more deeply, to correspond our earthly sacred space with, well, for lack of a better term in the moment, call it heavenly sacred space, or bringing heaven to earth. In other words, the esoteric realms to the earthly realm, have things there that are of like. They are magnetic, a pull, if you will. Reminds me of the haunted collector. I kind of like John Zaffis's work with the haunted collector, right? Trigger objects, they call them trigger objects. So if we want to trigger a wonderful reverberation from spirit, trigger objects or correspondences, together with our thought, creates an alchemy. And that alchemy is a wonderful energy that begins to happen, that bridges heaven and earth. So I said to William, Bill, why don't you set about these objects, light a candle? One thing about candle magic that I've learned in all of my years is that you can never go wrong with a white candle if we're working in the light. Set a white candle. Place trigger objects around your room that trigger two things: a feeling within you that says, oh, I'm going into the space of the Magdalene. Brings up a feeling, a welling. Maybe there are books that you have. And allow that to be for just a moment. That's where the alchemy is. It's not always in the doing, it's the being with. And sit with that and allow your mind to go where your partnership in that moment is taking you. So if you call upon Mary Magdalene, by whatever name you call her, with these objects about, and you say, take me to where I need to go in order to learn more about you. She will do that. Be mindful of your imagination. And when I say mindful, I'm not saying in a tricky way or a trickster way, but pay attention, be awake, be aware. I said, you can do this same thing with Francis of Assisi. You can do it with the archangels. You can do it with somebody that you love who has crossed over. The law of correspondence, as above, so below, and the alchemy that happens in between is where you want to be. No different than when I am pouring a sweat lodge. I am not singing Celtic songs inside my sweat lodge. It always amazes me when I hear about people who go to inipis or sweat lodges and they're classified as Native American sweat lodges, but they're on the inside singing Kumbaya, and, that muddies the water. It confuses the energy. We're talking about discerning and drilling down, being very particular. Because this series of classes is really based on clarity, seeing through, I've chosen one of the 33 mystic angels to focus on the law of correspondences. Right now I'm wrapping up and getting ready to publish a book called A Book of Enchantments. And it is a book of enchantments with the mystic angels, and there are now more mystic angels, particularly the 13 pillars, as I call them. And in that book of enchantments, and talking about what is enchantment, how do we create enchantment? What is that energy? How do all of the pieces fit together to create a specific thread of communication to and from earth to the heavens? That's what the book is about. It's, I think, something that all of you will find very employable and very enjoyable. It's not like anything I've ever written before. And again, it goes really deeply into detail, the law of correspondences of each of the 36 angels and angel groups. When we set a room ceremonially, whether we were in the Lady Chapel, and we notice a lot of things having to do with the Lady, Our Lady, or we go into a sweat lodge and we see things related to sweat lodge, what that says in the unseen realms and octaves is there is an energy being asked for. And we will reply, because what has been set at the table requires us to respond in like kind, us meaning the realm of the spirits. Of course, setting the table at a very high vibration is number one. Why are you doing the ceremony? Why are you building the congruency between heaven and earth? If it is for malfeasance, well, if you set the table for malfeasance, the poison eventually will visit you. If you are setting the table for beauty and light and the transpiring energies that occur, well, that's something entirely different. You will receive what it is that you seek to bring to you. And that is why the law of correspondence and the law of congruency and integrity in the work is the way that it is. If we wish to work in the dark planes, then the law of integrity in darkness applies, as does the law of correspondences to the dark. That's a whole other subject. We're talking about the light, of course, in this series. There are many things that we can place in a room to help us with our meditation, whether it is a very quiet, soulful, introspective meditation, or maybe it is a meditation where we walk in tandem with a beloved or a saint or an angel or a totem animal, whatever that is. But let's have the surroundings that we're in be congruent with that. I'm going to talk first about one of my favorite angels from the group. Is the Archangel Asariel. Now, when we go into the realm of enchantments with Asariel, not only is this an angel of clear seeing, how do you spell it? Asariel. And for those of you that have my deck, the Mystic Angels Empowerment deck, you will find Asariel with the esoteric teachings of Asariel, the angel. We're talking now about enchantments with that angel. Asariel is known as the ruler of the waves, the ruler of the air waves, we might call them, the ether waves, the water waves. Asariel is the angel or the energy from the ethers, from the heart and mind of God, that is the angel of discernment, the angel of discernment, the truth finder. So if we want to dial up into the heavens an angel that will help us in our Seers series to discern, we would want to call upon Asariel. And maybe there are others that you also enjoy calling upon. But as the ruler of the waves and the angel of discernment, this would be an angel that you would want to correspond with your wish to gain clarity into a situation, into a vision, into an apparition, into a situation that might be at hand, a dream that you had. See past the illusion and chaos. Asariel is one of those angels that takes us past all of the illusions and into the realms of truths. Truths as they pertain to you. I mean, the way that we all interpret truths can be very different, but your understanding of truth for yourself is your understanding of truth. You feel it right here. If we are going to set up an altar or a sacred space to be with this particular angel, Let's talk about corresponding color. The color of emerald, the color of any dark green. How can we correspond a color to an angel? And of course, there are other angels that correspond to green, so it's not like Asariel has, the only rights to be working with green. That's not what I'm saying here. Green sends off, particularly an emerald green, sends off an octave, an energy, a vibration. It sends out a music, if you will, that goes out into the ethers, and it draws those octaves pertaining to that very same color, and it brings it into the room. It brings it into your sacred space. So perhaps if you were going to do a ceremony or work with Asariel to gain your own clarity again as a seer, you might wear emerald green. You might wear an emerald on your body to be congruent. You might wear sterling silver. Sterling silver also gives off a vibration that out into the ethers attracts a like. In Egyptian, when we think about Egyptian deities and the Egyptian temples, typically the high priests and priestesses wore a lot of gold, 18 karat, 24 karat, the really, really earthy gold. Why did they wear gold? It wasn't just a representation of, I have wealth. It was a representation of, I am going to attract from the other worlds, very high vibrations that are brought in by wearing gold. The gold bracelets that I have were purchased in Egypt. And for me, they represent wearing these so that I'm always like a beacon, or what do I want to say? I guess like a beacon, yes, for high vibration spirituality and spirits. It's not about how much gold can I stick on my arm. It's about sending out a call that says I am attracting to me. The same is true with sterling silver. Sterling silver has that same octave that is sent out and brings to us into a room, to our body and energy. When we're looking at correspondences, particularly, let's talk about the fact that Asariel is the ruler of waves. We might have something in our room related to Neptune or Poseidon. We might have a bowl of water. Maybe we have a trident. Something that says, I'm attracting the energy of water. What is water? It is the psyche. It is the emotions. It is the flow of energy. It's the wisdom from the depths of the seas, both personally and globally, right? There are treasures in the seas that we have yet to discover in our humanness. So it's about all of those things. What about a tree correspondence? How do we employ nature? Well, my sweat lodge is made out of willows, because willow carries wonderful moisture. It's pliable, it's bendable. So it has the element of water. It's like a magic wand. My entire inipi, if we look at it like that, is like a magic wand, several wands that are bent over one another in the number of 16 of them, all crossing over, creating a web of willow, a web of water, which also represents the trees, and grandmother willow. Asariel likes willow for this very same reason, and ash. Willow, ash, Neptune, Poseidon, silver, emerald. When I think of those things for myself, I think of the ocean. When the waves, the white caps come in, particularly toward the evening, and it has a glint of silver on top of the water. And sometimes those waters are incredibly emerald green. waterways, the watery nations. We've talked about water in the last Seer series, so you understand how important that element of water is in what we're talking about. What about a flower correspondence? Well, as it happens, the archangel Asariel actually resonates to the carnation. And so you can have a bouquet of carnations. Maybe there's an essential oil of carnation. I don't know. But to have the presence of carnations in the room. What about the days of the week? The 7 days of the week are also very sacred. And Asariel resonates to Thursday, Thor's day. Thunder, lightning, bridging heaven and earth. And we know what happens when the lightning strikes. There's clarity. Everything that needs to be laid to waste is laid to waste, so that there's absolute clarity. Thor's day, Thursday. So if we wanted to have high ceremony with the angel of clarity and discernment, we might consider taking part of this coming Thursday to set a sacred space, employing all of these correspondences. Asariel, thank you for helping me to see my path more clearly, to discern what's going on in this situation, to help me understand my feelings, to help me to see what's really going on here. Thursday, named after the god Thor. What about smells? What about unguents? Asariel resonates to frankincense. Not frankincense and myrrh, frankincense. No different, again, and I always use the allusion of the sweat lodge. You're not going to find me burning frankincense in my sweat lodge, but you will find me having cedar, sweetgrass, sage, tobacco around. The lodge is made of willow. Does any of it matter? Every bit of it matters. The same thing happens in times of prayer. If you have a prayer station or a meditation station, what is your intention? If you have a prayer place, is it just a myriad of this and that and a little bit of hoop-de-doo and wah-de-doo? That's fine, as long as within yourself it creates a congruency. But if you want to have a spiritual congruency for a singular purpose, being in alignment with the heavenly correspondences to what we wish to bring here to earth is absolutely necessary. So clearing the clutter. I'm not going to put on my Celtic altar a statue of Ganesha. I don't have on my altar to the Black Madonna anything that is not related to Egypt. For me, the Black Madonna represents in the beginning, when things emerged out of the darkness. To me, she is the creatrix. And for me, Egypt, Africa, is the country of origin for all things here on Grandmother Earth. So everything on her altar pertains to that. The next level of my altar, this is a multi-layered altar that I'm sitting next to, is the goddess Isis. And the very top layer is dedicated to Mary Magdalene. Everything on each one of those altars, there are 5 shelves. Each layer is absolutely congruent to, and when I light a candle, or I smudge, or I focus, if I light, I'm not going to light a candle on the lower ones because my whole library will go up. So we have to be smart about it. If I light some incense on the first 4 layers of my multi-layered altar, wherever I'm lighting the incense is where my focus goes. And I employ the energy of that deity. So whether it's Native American, etc., you can see part of one of my altars back here, which is Native American. You see what I'm saying? Everything is congruent. on my family altar, my ancestral altar, the only congruency is that it all relates to me and my bloodline. That's the congruency. So there is Africa, there is Native America, there are the Celts, there is a rosary that I purchased in Ireland. The congruency in that case is my blood and my bones. All of the other altars throughout the properties are very in alignment with its purpose. If I'm in the sweat lodge and I'm singing church hymns, in fact, this did happen one time, many, many years ago, 2006. Wakian was pouring the lodge. And there was a man who had come with him from the reservation, who was a very Christian man, a lovely man. Sydney has no horses. And Sydney, being a very devout Christian, started singing a Christian hymn inside Wakian Snamani's inipi. Wakian stopped the ceremony and asked Sydney to leave the inipi. Now, he and Sydney were very close friends. They're brothers-in-law. And later he said to Sydney, I asked you to leave because you were singing songs that confuse what I'm doing in there. And if you're singing them, then you're wearing them. You're wearing those songs in my inipi, and I can't have you wearing those Christian songs inside my inipi. That is why I asked you to leave. You threw the ceremony off. I believe, in all of my years of working with really teachers from around the world, some of the most amazing teachers, some are famous, some I'll never see again. It was a very brief moment that they became my teacher. All have taught me one thing, and that is, if we really want to find something out, rather than let everything scatter and wander, let's go to the source. Let's go to the source. And the way that I do it may be slightly different than the way you build a congruency for your ceremony, but congruency and integrity is the key. Somebody asked, I think it was Holly asked, Del Marie, is there only one way of pouring a sweat lodge? There are a lot of people who believe, oh, there's only one way and you have to follow X, Y, and Z and to get that result. And Del Marie said, no, there is no one way. It's up to the person who pours. But the person who pours a sweat lodge, at least in the Lakota tradition, has been chosen to do so. Nobody just says, oh, I think I'm going to pour a Lakota Sioux sweat lodge. It doesn't happen that way. They're chosen. In the tradition that we're talking about, it's not about being chosen. It's about being smart. It's about wanting that same connection. And how do you really get it without having a bunch of dissonance? It's about being clear with your intention. I want to find out more about this situation. Asariel guides, and you can call upon more than one. You can bring in several. I want to find out more about this person's intention toward me. I want to find out more about that situation. Give me clarity. And I begin to build the ceremony with everything that will part the clouds of emotion. So I'm not emotionally involved in the ceremony. I'm not blubbering and wailing and going on. I'm very clear, like a surgeon. I can go in, get the facts. Maybe I'll have some thoughts and emotions afterward. But during the course of discernment, I'm very clear and very precise. And after I bring out what it is that I'm looking for in the way of information, or maybe it's a visual or a feeling or however that comes to you, then I can take a look at and maybe have some emotion. But I'm not going to bring my emotions into my ceremony. You see that when I'm holding inipi, I'm in. I know what I need to do to get in and beyond the veil. I know how to traverse beyond the veil to bring in what is needed for everybody in that space. If we're doing it just for ourselves, we also need to be together, to have our poop in a group, right? To go in, gather, bring out, sit with. and close the ceremony. Asariel, thank you for helping me to discern. Thank you for bringing further clarity in my dreams. Thank you. The reason that we're talking about this is that we're coming upon a very beautiful time, summer. We have wonderful moon phases and sun and everything that's going on at this time before we prepare for the next retrograde, which will be in Scorpio, right? Retrograde in Scorpio, I believe, happens at the end of October and through November. So having a relationship with Asariel, the ruler of the waves and the angel of discernment, you know, getting that going. When people say, boy, it was a heck of a retrograde. And, you know, sometimes when we're retrograding, when we're going back and looking and things are coming up for us, we can be caught up in the frustration of whatever it is or the excitement if we can just go in a neutral way as the observer, awake and aware. And knowing that the next time when we are in retrograde, which will be Scorpio, which is water, which is psyche, if you have a relationship with this angel, you can employ a relationship with this angel. So we have now early August, all of September, most of October, to really be with this, to go in and ask for clarity. You can set this up with Asariel and then invite your favorite saint. Maybe you like Paramahansa Yogananda. You can set things up around your room pertaining to Yogananda and ask him to sit a spell to be with you. We can use it in tandem with an altar of clarity, including what we call a messenger of light that brings that stream of light known as clarity and discernment, is a wonderful backdrop to inviting someone to sit with us. Maybe we need clarity from a relative who has passed, etc., etc. You've all, I think most all, have been in my reading room. And you see that my reading room is very congruent for what it is that I am doing in there. The energies that are brought in, that are shared, that I'm steeping my clients in. Anybody who goes in that room understands that there's going to be Christianity. Yeah, there's only one way to rock. Yes, I sure will. I will spell it in the chat room. There are a lot of people who believe there's only one way of doing something. And I think, you know, a lot of us brought up with dogma can appreciate that sometimes we are those people. And, you know, I had always thought there was one way of doing Native American spirituality until I met Wakian. And he blew the lid right off of that in teaching me. And particularly because he's a Heoka man, right? So he taught me many things in the contrarian way, which actually wasn't very funny, but it was effective. We'll just say that. All right, so if I am going to set up time for prayer, and if I'm going to be doing a prayer, I'm going to be doing a prayer for my brother Guy. I just got off the phone with his wife just before this class. If I'm going to be putting up a prayer for my brother Guy, dull knife, I will be using my chanupa, my pipe. I'm not going to use my rosary. If I didn't have the chanupa, I would pray in whatever way to pray. Right? I'm not saying that any of those others are bad, but because my brother walks the way of the buffalo, the way of the pipe, the congruency would be for me to also lift my pipe, a congruency. And I'm not going to burn frankincense and myrrh for him when I'm having my pipe. It will be with sage and cedar. So you can see the importance of congruency. And then walking with who you are in congruency. Walking with who you are. You know, that's just about always understanding that people are always discerning who we are too, right? trying to discern who we are. So what do we put on Facebook? What do we put on Twitter? Who are we? What are we allowing people to see to discern us? And I guess if you're a Heo cow person, you can put anything out there and let them guess, right? But there are energies that we also, talking about congruency, whatever we put out there, it's out there. And so we would like it to be congruent with who we are, not misrepresenting. Yeah, so that's a great conversation to have. So there you are, everybody. A lesson in, no, but personally, if you would just hold them in your prayers, that would be wonderful, Rob. Thank you. That would be fabulous if everyone here on this, in this class, would put up a post for Guy. He is not doing well. So putting up a prayer for him in whatever way is congruent for you would be most appreciated. The power of prayer is astonishing, and maybe employ the Archangel Saint Raphael, right, for that. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that is true. You know, when we're talking about, let's just talk about that for a moment, Rob, since you brought it up. What do we put out on Facebook with regard to our illnesses? What do we put out there? You know, recently I had somebody who put out on their Facebook page a very dire illness for everybody to see. As much as we like to think that maybe all of our friends on Facebook are just that and would only hold the highest intention, what actually happened, somebody saw that and used it as a weak spot to make the condition worse, spiritually worse. There was a spiritual attachment that was sent to this person, and I had to go retrieve it and peel it off. So we have to be mindful that what we put out, whether it's in a sacred ceremony, or Rob was polite enough to ask about Guy. Personally, I've seen too much of people that don't always have the best intention, but will portray themselves to have that, right? Use it as a sweet spot or a weak spot. And the beauty of it is that this person was quickly caught. But not after I had to go and retrieve the thing that had been put on this person. So I'm not saying that that always happens, but particularly when you're somebody of Guy Dolknife's stature out there, sometimes I have to get a hold of my nieces and say, you know, a little too much information is too much information. So yeah, that's a great discussion to have. It's all about integrity. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, being silent, just being quiet about it. Absolutely, Rhonda. Well, Raphael brings to us a stream of healing. Asariel will say, oh, I see, I help you see where the problem is. Asariel can be like the triage nurse in the ER. Asariel will say, oh, there it is. Let's gain some clarity on why you're here and what's going on. And which of the angels am I going to call in to doctor you? Well, I'm going to call in Raphael, who will be able to see into the condition even further and to help to bring an energy related to that specific illness or injury to help heal that. So they work in tandem with one another. Raphael also sees into illness, but we're not always looking into illness. Asariel helps us to see into any situation. No different than, I mean, I didn't use Asariel in this case of this poor person who was so horribly ill, and somebody used it as a means to, oh, well, now that they're down, let's, you know, kick them while they're down. To find that person, I could have used Asariel, but I use my other spirit helpers. And had I used Asariel, however, I would have then asked Raphael to heal what had been done because of the malfeasance that was purposefully sent. So we have a healer and we have the one who who finds. And there are some crossover. There's crossover in that. The general practitioner sometimes has to call in a specialist. And oftentimes they both have a lot of the same knowledge. So I hope that helps with that. Yeah. Yes, and there are some well-intentioned people who do, yeah. Yeah. It's all about getting some decorum and some manners in that. But, the fact of the matter is that sometimes we do need to discern what's going on. And, as the leader of your healing group, then it's your discernment to, how much goes up and how much information is going to be on there. And what are we putting this person up for? If we say, somebody just had a radical mastectomy, well, we now have revealed that this person has had a radical mastectomy. And if anybody with any malfeasance is looking at that, we need to, be responsible and hold sacred boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not telling anybody anything that you don't already know. But I learned a long time ago from the medicine people that we have to be really careful to what we put out in the community, whether it's a cyber community or a community of friends or whatever. So it's all about discernment. It's about being, why are we doing what we're doing, and being very clear with that and holding sacred space for that to happen. If somebody comes into my NEP and they have an illness, something goes on, the spirits that I call in to help with the healing, well, first of all, help them to see what's really going on, right? And I have a perimeter set around the NEP, right? So, and humans are humans, so that's what that is. A long story to a simple question that Rob asked, and thank you, Rob, for asking it. I appreciate that. So with that, everybody, your homework, staying in one's own lane. That's a really good way. Stay in your lane. It's a good way to put it, Rhonda. So your homework, I love that, should you choose it, is maybe this Thursday sometime, or next Thursday, or the Thursday after, to set a space for a Sariel, to take a look into something perhaps that you need clarity into, and to see how it feels to work with that angel of clarity and discernment, or in alignment with what we've talked about today. Create a ceremony for yourself using specific objects related to who it is that you've invited into your meditation or your prayer, or who it is that you wish to work with. Just feel that. Feel how it feels, number one, to build it, because in the doing, that is a sacred act. In the doing, how are we doing it? As Mother Teresa used to say, do everything with love, including washing the dishes, right? When you're washing, doing it with love. It's in the doing that we find sacred space. It's with the being with it afterwards that we can feel the sacredness. And it is in the doing of the relationship with that we can feel the sacredness. And then allowing the alchemy of the prayer or the intention to coagulate between heaven and earth, allowing it to come into being. That is sacred, to allow, and always to give thanks. That is one of the most sacred things that we can do. That says to the universe, I appreciate the alchemy that we have. I am grateful. And the gratitude continues. So with that, everyone, thank you for being here today in the class of discernment for seers and sensitives. Blessing be, everybody. Shine on.